Okay, welcome again to my channel. My name is Olawale-Olatujoye if you are coming here for the very first time. And here I talk about everything maritals to married, to the singles, on family and on parenting, right? Of course, teaching from biblical perspectives. And it's been so good. All right, so on this one, I want to do a series actually on wisdom for newbies in pregnancies or new moms, right? Maybe people that are just getting married and, it's all of a sudden you find out that you're pregnant and all of the experiences is just here and there. You've picked on certain wisdom here and there and you don't even know what exactly you're meant to apply or what is true and what is not true. On this series, I'm going to be breaking things out for you, things that ordinarily you wouldn't even hear during a counseling session in some cases, right, in church. But here, I will open it all up for you, and I'll be sharing from biblical perspective. I'll also be challenging some cultural mindsets, so I might be treading on the thin line in some cases. But one thing I want you to do is have an open mind, right? For all that I'll be sharing with you. And let's reason together based on the scriptures. So I'm speaking to newbies and pregnancies rather, and new moms, right, having a new mom experience. Okay, so let's shoot. The very first thing I want to speak about is to break the table, right? When it comes to the whole, I want to give birth like the Hebrew woman cliche, or the whole prayer around giving birth like an Hebrew woman. I want to break it down today, and I believe that this is going to liberate many people. What does it really mean to um, give birth like the Hebrew women? Who had the Hebrew women? Why is the scripture right particular about these Hebrew women, and what is it about the Hebrew women and the African woman of today, right? We need to really put things together very well. Now, the reason why I'm attending to this topic is because a lot of people on the context of the so-called Hebrew women have jeopardized their lives and the lives of their babies, or even, enter into trauma just because they misunderstood the entire concept of the Hebrew woman. So let's look at the scriptures together. Where exactly did the scripture mention the Hebrew woman, and what did it say about the Hebrew woman? We saw it in Exodus chapter 1 verse 19, right? It says, the midwives answered Pharaoh, the Hebrew woman aren't like the Egyptian women. The Hebrew women rather aren't like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous. Before the midwife can get there, they've already had the baby. Now, if you read this, I can't read the entire chapter here because I want to keep the whole thing short, right? If you read the entire chapter, let me tell you the storyline. So this was it. Pharaoh gave an order for these women to kill every male child that they see an Hebrew woman give birth to. And so they saw that these women were not doing Pharaoh saw that these women were not doing what he asked them to do. And so he called them and asked them why they were not carrying out his order. And so the answer they gave to Pharaoh was what we saw in the book that I just read now, Exodus chapter 1, verse 19. They told Pharaoh that, see, we want to carry out your ordeal, but these women are so vigorous such that before we get to them, they're already put to bed. Now let's look at it. When you're looking at the scriptures, it's an error to pick a scripture out of context and begin to give your own meaning to it. The right way to study scripture or to understand scripture is actually to look at the storyline. What was said before that scripture and that particular verse that you're lifting? What was the storyline? Is there a story that is being told, right, before you got to that verse? It's very important that you know the storyline. That's why meditating on the scripture is good. Studying the scripture is very important, but reading the scripture is also good, because the reading helps you to familiarize yourself with the storyline. The storyline of a scripture is very important to giving you an overview context of what that scripture is saying. So let's say this. Who is speaking here? The Hebrew woman. This is not God. This is not even a prophet. It is, the midwives rather. It is the midwife responding to what Pharaoh asked them to do. So let's look at it. What happened actually? These women were given an order to kill the male children. But the scripture made us understand that they feared the Lord, and so they did not carry out the order of Pharaoh. Now, the reason they did not carry out the order of Pharaoh was because they feared the Lord. It wasn't necessarily because these women were actually vigorous. Now, the truth is that response, we can't justify whether they were saying the truth or they were lying. Why? Because the reason they spared those children was because they feared God. The reason was not because they were vigorous or before they got there, they had already given birth. Well, you can say, how do you know they were even lying? Let's leave that. I'm coming into it. But you see, they saying that they were vigorous might be true. And that's because we are talking about the Hebrew women here. We are talking about people under the Abrahamic covenant here. So it's very, very true. It can be true that these women were actually vigorous. But you see, the reason they tended to Pharaoh was not the reason that actually made them spare those children. The fear of the Lord was the reason. So when you are confessing, I give back like the Hebrew women, I give back like the Hebrew women, let's understand the entire concept of the story. Now, I want to agree with you that truly they were vigorous. What does it mean to be vigorous? I have a dictionary meaning here, and I'm going to read it out. It says that to be vigorous means to be strong, healthy, and full of energy. So the Hebrew women, in short, were women that were strong in their bodies. They were healthy and full of energy. So vigorous here was actually talking about their body structure, their health, right? Their physical health as regards giving birth to children. That was what vigorous actually meant in that context. So if they said they were vigorous, what we should actually look at it. Why were they vigorous? Let's believe that it is true because they are people of persons of covenant. But I want you to know this: covenant is two-way. Covenant cannot happen between a person and himself alone. You know what I'm trying to say? You can't have covenant with yourself, in quotes. It has to be like a relationship between you and another person. So covenant is a two-way thing. And when you look through the scriptures, you see that covenant comes with instructions. It means that when you cut the covenant with God, there's an instruction dimension to that covenant. So if truly these women were actually strong, healthy, and they were vigorous as they described, they were actually enjoying, right, the Abrahamic covenants because they were in the land of Egypt and probably were exposed to the same thing that the Egyptian women that they were compared to were also experiencing. But it looks like their experiences were different, right? But you see, if you look at the meaning of vigorous, we know that there is also an instruction dimension to that covenant. So when you want to lift a covenant and plug yourself into a covenant, you must also understand that there are instructions that makes that covenant a reality. But this is what we do. We hold on to the covenants we hold on to those covenants and do away with the instructions of the covenants. Now, you want to give back like the Hebrew woman. You want to be strong. You want to be vigorous. An African woman. Hello, what are you eating? Some of us in pregnancy, of which I am also guilty, we take noodles, we take Coke, we take all of the funny food, you know. we even have what they call it now. We even have sometimes say, no, I just have this urge for ice cream. You take Cold Stone, you take pizza, and you take all of those things, and then you begin to say, I give back like the Hebrew woman. Yes. It's your covenant. God expects that you should actually be vigorous, but what are you taking into your body? before you begin to hold on to the covenant of the Hebrew woman, what are you taking into your body? I saw something in the scripture. How have those, what were the Hebrew women eating? You see, one of the things we notice in the journey of God with the children of Israel was that He was particular with the things that they ate. God was very particular with the things that they ate. God was mindful of what they had. That was why when He was speaking to Peter, when He showed the trance to Peter and He was saying that He eats these things, and the guy was like, how can I eat this unclean thing? You will even see it in the book of Daniel, where Daniel was brought with other people from other places, and then they asked him to eat the king's portion. This guy said, I'm not going to defile myself with the king's meat. Why? Because there was something about the Hebrew guy or the Hebrew person and what they consumed. They don't eat carelessly like any other person. You will see that when they were even walking through the wilderness, right? God fed them with manna because He didn't feed them with bread. He didn't feed them with anything earthly because there was a body structure that was needed for them to walk that journey. So God was particular about what they were feeding on. Before you begin to confess, I give back like the Hebrew woman, I give back like the Hebrew woman, are you obeying the instructions of that covenant? Because covenant is two-way. There is the instruction dimension and there is the promise dimension of covenant. So my question to you is that, are you keeping both hands? Because if you are not keeping both hands, there will be issues. All right, I'm going to continue this. Follow this series. It's going to be hot. I'm going to continue this in the next series. Thank you so much for joining today. God bless you.